Hello dear viewers, and welcome to this video. I will be rhyming throughout this thing, just so you know. Now sit back and listen to the story about a crossover of bliss. This is the story of Danny Treefrog's Grumpy Old Christmas. Our story begins on the day before Christmas, when all through the house, all the creatures were stirring, especially the mouse. Though they weren't stirring for long, as who has showed? Why, it's the owner of the house, Grumman P.O.'d Toad. He used his broom and a can of some spray. He threatened them and shooed them away. They ran out the door and jumped through the snow, trying to get away. Before he closed the door, Grumman had said, "I never said you could stay." He slammed the door, causing snow to rumble. Then he retired back to his chair with a mumble. Not far away, on the path to the property, there was Danny Treefrog, who was walking with glee. As he walked, the creatures ran by. He stopped for a moment to ponder why. He stopped the little mouse, kneeling down to speak to him. "Why are y'all running? You going to a gym?" The mouse looked up to him, with worry in his eyes. "It's that grumpy old toad. He's one of those crazy guys."
"Why, that's who I'm going to see. I've got something for him,"
Danny told the mouse, whose name was actually Tim. Tim looked at Danny like he was some kind of schmuck. "Alright, but he seemed pissed, so I wish you good luck." Tim wandered off into the snow. Danny shrugged it off and still decided to go. Danny had finally arrived to the old toad home. He knocked on the door while standing next to the garden gnome. Grumman had tumbled out of his chair and stumbled to the door. He said to himself, "I can't take this anymore." He then pulled out a gun and... oh my. Oh wait, sorry, that was a newspaper clip, and I'm not sure how I got in here or why. Grumman had tumbled out of his chair and stumbled to the door. He said to himself, "It's probably Reggie, that dirty whore." He opened the door, and who should he see? Why, it's Danny Treefrog. That we already knew, you and me. Danny took off his hat and his cane he suddenly had. He showed Grumman a box and said, "This will sure make you glad." Grumman looked at him for a moment with his iconic blank expression. While Danny was smiling, Grumman slammed the door, much to our expectation. Danny was disappointed and looked down for a bit.
"I need to get this to him. I can't really return it."
He then looked at the top, where the chimney was at.
"I'll get it to him that way,"
he said as he put on his Santa hat. He climbed up the house, as quiet as he could be. Then he looked into the attic and noticed the Christmas tree. It was old, broken, and faded away from joy. Danny whispered, "I've really got to do this for the old boy." Danny had climbed and slipped but never gave up. With determination, he finally made it to the top. He looked at the chimney, where something seemed amiss. Staring at it for a moment, he then said,
"I guess I'm doing this."
He climbed up the bricks and got ready for the jump. Before going down, he spoke,
"I hope this doesn't cause a lump."
He jumped down the chimney like an idiot without a rope. He could have slowly crawled down, but he'll be fine, I hope. But without getting far, he landed on something that caused him to cough.
"Ah, crap, you gotta be kidding. He sealed the freaking thing off."
Though just as he said that, the wood underneath him was beginning to crack. He had a look of worry in his eyes, as he knew there was no way back. The wood finally broke, and he fell right to the bottom. As he looked up, he saw, in the room with him, was Grumman. As Danny stood up, he said, "Well, that was fun." Grumman walked up right to him with his old shotgun. Danny nervously put his hands up with his hat that he had doffed. Grumman stared at him and said, "10 seconds to explain before I blow your head off." Danny stumbled at first before he started to say,
"I just wanted to give you this present. I had to find a way."
Grumman looked at the present, as Danny was sweating with fear. Grumman lowered his gun and said, "Alright, give it here." Danny delivered the present and backed away slowly. Grumman unwrapped the gift and looked inside closely. Grumman was stunned, with a different kind of expression on him. What was inside the box? Why, it was an old but working game system. Grumman looked up at Danny, who was putting his arms down. He then looked back at the system, with tears in his eyes, but without a frown. "Me and my kids, We used to play this a lot. I thought I had lost it forever, he had thought. Danny then said,
Your grandkids asked me to give this to you. The parents helped me out with some things, so it was the least I could do.
Grumman slowly put the gift down, along with his gun too. He walked up to Danny, put his hand on his shoulder and said, Thank you. For the first time in a while, Grumman had smiled and looked quite happy. It was quite a sight to behold, though a bit weird looking, admittedly. Danny smiled back as if he won a grand emblem. He ignored the last 5 minutes or so and said,
No problem.
Danny looked behind him and dropped the smile in a second or less. He looked back at Grumman and said,
Sorry about the mess.
Grumman had a chuckle and said, Don't worry about it. I am a little surprised you didn't try the door again, I must admit. Danny nervously smiled as he said,
Yeah, I probably could have done that then. My autism probably had a hand in me making that decision.
Grumman looked at him before they both started to laugh. Then Danny decided to help Grumman set up his Christmas stuff to cut the workload in half. 24 hours later, on Christmas Day, Grumman had set up a party in quite a fun way. His family had come, grandkids and all, though way more people were there to deck the halls. Of course Danny showed up, along with Pep and Charles too. Manny was there for the kids to be amused. Untitled, that one guy, Dan, Git, and Show, this list keeps going like you wouldn't even know. Sonic the Hedgehog, Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, Sparks and Aku Aku, as well as Shadow. Goku, Vegeta, and Thomas the Tank Engine. There were just a lot, as you can imagine. Probably too many characters inside one house, but it was fantastic. And the weird choices are obvious when you know the writer is autistic. Danny and Grumman posed for a picture for the party of parties. Soon after, they had Christmas dinner, which they got from Hardee's. And that was the tale of a holiday mess, the story of Danny Treefrog's grumpy old Christmas.
Thank you for watching, or I guess rather listening. A story by me, Danny Van S, cause I'm sure you were wondering. Like, comment, and subscribe in any kind of way. Have a Merry Christmas or other holiday.